I'm Mark Davis. I always thought that if I could just get my career to where I wanted it, successful, established, financially secure, everything else would fall into place. That's what I believed anyway. I had dreams. Big ones. I wanted to build a law firm, be someone people respected, make enough money so I could provide everything for my family. For years, that belief was my North Star. And at the time, my wife, Sarah, was the one person I could always rely on, the one who supported me through thick and thin. But life has a funny way of shifting priorities. I'm Mark Davis. I always thought that if I could just get my career to where I wanted it, successful, established, financially secure, everything else would fall into place. That's what I believed anyway. I had dreams. Big ones. I wanted to build a law firm, be someone people respected, make enough money so I could provide everything for my family. For years, that belief was my North Star. And at the time, my wife, Sarah, was the one person I could always rely on, the one who supported me through thick and thin. But life has a funny way of shifting priorities. Looking back now, I realize I was drowning in my own beliefs. I thought the more I worked, the more I'd succeed, and the more successful I became, the more my family would respect me. I had no idea that I was losing sight of the things that truly mattered. When I met Sarah, I thought I had everything figured out. She was warm, loving, and the perfect balance to my ambition. She believed in me when I didn't even believe in myself. But the longer I spent chasing my dreams, the more I began to realize that my belief in success was becoming my belief in sacrifice. I was sacrificing time, family, love, all for what? A few more zeros in my bank account. Then there was the fear. The nagging feeling that maybe I was doing all of this for nothing. What if I kept going down this path and ended up alone, with all the success in the world but nothing to show for it? What if Sarah, the woman I'd married and built my life with, grew tired of waiting for me to arrive? I feared that my obsession with success was slowly pushing her away, and every time I reached a new milestone, I felt a little more disconnected from her. Deep down, I thought that the more I gave to my career, the less I had to give to her. It seemed like a simple trade-off. A choice I could justify. But as the years went on, the weight of this belief began to crush me, and yet I couldn't stop. It was like I was stuck in this never-ending cycle: work harder, get more, prove myself, and I thought that was the answer to everything. But it wasn't until that one day, that one moment, when everything changed that I realized the truth. I wish I could say I made the decision to break up with Sarah for some noble reason, something that made it all feel justified. But deep down, I know it wasn't. It was a decision driven by my own fears and ambitions, wrapped in the lie that I was doing this for our future. It was a normal evening when the conversation happened. We were sitting across from each other at our dinner table, the silence hanging between us like a thick cloud. She had that look on her face, the one I had seen too many times. Disappointed. Sad even. "I think you're pulling away from me, Mark," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I could feel the weight of her words, but at the same time, I couldn't ignore the pressure of my own thoughts. My career was taking off. The firm was growing, new clients were pouring in, and everything seemed to be falling into place, except her. Sarah, the woman who had supported me for years, the woman who was always there, was starting to slip through my fingers. And I couldn't afford to let that happen. Not when I was this close to everything I ever wanted. The truth? I was scared. Scared that if I didn't make this work now, if I didn't double down on my career, everything I had worked for would fall apart. The fear of failure loomed over me like a dark cloud, and I couldn't allow myself to lose everything I had built. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew I was already losing her. "I can't do this anymore," I said, the words coming out before I had a chance to stop them. "I need to focus on my career. I need to build this. I need to make something of myself. And I can't do that if I'm constantly worrying about us." Her eyes widened, and for a second, I thought I saw a flicker of disbelief. Maybe even hurt. But I couldn't take it back now. My mind was already made up. This was the only way forward. I told myself that once I reached the top, once I was successful enough, then we could fix things. Then I could show her I loved her. Then I could be the man I wanted to be for her. But what I didn't realize was that the price of that success was already too high. And I wouldn't see it until much later. As I watched her quietly gather her things, I felt a sting in my chest. A small part of me wanted to reach out, to stop her, to tell her I was wrong. But the larger part of me, the part that was terrified of failing, stood still. I couldn't afford to be weak. Not now. The days that followed were strange, almost surreal. On the outside, everything seemed fine. I was busy. My law firm was growing, I was closing deals, bringing in new clients. But inside, something was missing. And it wasn't just Sarah. It was the feeling of connection, of purpose. The thing I thought I'd been building everything for was suddenly absent. I found myself coming home to an empty apartment more often than I cared to admit. The silence felt deafening. Every time I walked into the place we used to share, the memories would flood back, laughing over dinners, late-night conversations, the way Sarah's presence had always made everything feel right. Now, it felt hollow. The walls echoed with the absence of her voice. And the strangest thing was, the emptier the apartment felt, the more I threw myself into work. It was like I was running away from something, trying to fill a void that I didn't even know how to describe. I'd convinced myself that I was doing the right thing. That success was the ultimate goal, that love would somehow find its way back into our lives when I had the time to focus on it. But every night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling more alone than I ever had before. I was successful, yes. But in that success I had lost something far more precious than any amount of money or recognition. I had lost the person I loved, and I couldn't bring myself to admit that to anyone, not even to myself. Then, one morning, something unexpected happened. My assistant called to tell me that there was a new potential client I had to meet with. When I walked into the meeting, I was greeted by a woman with a smile that immediately put me at ease. Her name was Emma. She was articulate, confident, and everything I admired in a person. But there was something else, something deeper, something familiar about her. We connected on a level I hadn't expected. As the conversation flowed, I couldn't help but feel that she understood me in ways that no one else had for a long time. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel the crushing weight of loneliness. I felt seen. It was unsettling at first, how easy it was to talk to her, how natural the conversation felt. But I also realized something important. I wasn't looking for a replacement for Sarah. I wasn't trying to fill a hole with Emma. But maybe, just maybe, I had forgotten what it felt like to connect with someone in a meaningful way. The days started feeling lighter. I wasn't out of the woods yet, not by a long shot, but I began to see a different side of myself, someone who wasn't defined solely by work, by ambition, or by sacrifice. I started understanding that maybe there was more to life than what I'd been chasing all along. I still didn't have all the answers, but for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope. One day, after a particularly long week of back-to-back meetings, I decided to grab a coffee at the little cafe near the office. It was one of those places that always seemed a bit too crowded for its own good, but somehow, I liked the bustle. I guess it gave me a sense of normalcy in the chaos of my work life. As I was waiting for my coffee, I glanced around the room and froze. There, sitting by the window, was Sarah. She looked just like I remembered, beautiful, serene, lost in a book. My heart stopped for a moment, and a flood of emotions rushed over me. It had been months since we broke up. Months of avoiding the pain, suppressing the memories. And now, there she was, sitting as if nothing had changed. I had told myself I'd moved on, that seeing her wouldn't hurt anymore. But it did. I found myself walking toward her, my mind a swirl of emotions. Did she see me? Did she still care? Would she even want to talk? As I approached the table, she looked up, and our eyes met. For a brief second, everything stood still. Then she smiled, a small, hesitant smile, and gestured for me to sit down. "Mark, it's good to see you," she said, her voice as warm as ever. But there was something in her eyes, a depth I hadn't seen before. It was as if everything we had gone through had transformed her. Maybe even me. We talked. Not about the breakup. Not about the reasons why we'd ended things. Instead, we talked about what had happened in the months since. She told me about her travels, her new projects, the things she had discovered about herself. And I realized something. She wasn't the same woman I had broken up with. She had changed, just like I had. It wasn't just about the work I had chosen over her. It was about how we both had lost sight of what was important, not just in our relationship, but in our own lives. We had both been so focused on external things, career, expectations, the future, that we forgot to nurture the connection we had. And in that, we had missed the simple truth: love isn't something you find in success or status. It's something you build every day with effort, with understanding, and with care. By the end of our conversation, I realized something powerful. We had both grown. We had both learned. And while I wasn't sure what would happen next, there was something comforting about that, about the possibility that maybe, just maybe, we could try again. But this time, it wouldn't be about career or success or sacrifice. It would be about us, about love, and about the second chances we both deserved. After my chance encounter with Sarah, something inside me had shifted. It was as if the fog that had clouded my thoughts for so long had started to clear. I had been so caught up in the idea of success, so focused on what I thought I needed to achieve, that I had forgotten about the simple, everyday things that made life meaningful. And in doing so, I had lost sight of the love I once shared with Sarah. For a while, I couldn't stop thinking about that conversation. Sarah wasn't the same person I had broken up with, and neither was I. There was something different about the way we spoke, the way we connected that afternoon. It was as though we had both learned the hard way that life isn't just about the next big win. It's about the people who are there with you along the way. The ones who support you, challenge you, and love you through it all. But I still wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if it was too late. Could we really rebuild what we once had? Could I trust her again? Could she trust me? A few weeks passed, and I kept reflecting on what I had learned during our brief meeting. Eventually, I realized that I was being given a second chance, not just with Sarah, but with myself. It was clear to me now that rebuilding our relationship would take time, effort, and a commitment to something deeper than just fleeting emotions or physical attraction. It would take patience, vulnerability, and, most importantly, trust. I reached out to Sarah. We decided to meet up again, and this time, we talked openly about everything. About our past mistakes. About the pressures we had both faced. About the fear and the pride that had gotten in our way. And most importantly, we talked about how we could move forward, together. Trust wasn't something that could be rebuilt overnight. It was going to take work. But I realized that, for the first time in a long time, I was willing to do that work. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because, after everything we had been through, I knew we still had something worth fighting for. As we sat together that day, talking about the future, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in years. I was no longer worried about my career, about making it to the top, about proving something to the world. I realized that, no matter how successful I became, if I didn't have the people I loved beside me, it would all be meaningless. And I knew that Sarah was someone I wanted by my side. Not just as a partner, but as a person I could share my life with, build with, and grow with. The day Sarah and I decided to give things another shot felt surreal. It was as if the world had shifted just a little bit, and everything felt a little clearer. We had spent months apart, each of us navigating our own paths, and yet here we were, standing at the crossroads of our past and our future. It was hard to believe that after everything, we had come to this moment, ready to start over, together. I was nervous. Not because I didn't believe in us, but because I knew that starting over wasn't going to be easy. We both had scars from our past, the hurt of the breakup, the lost time, the uncertainty of whether we could ever truly reconnect. But we had something more now: understanding, patience, and a deeper appreciation for the bond we shared. The first few weeks were challenging, to say the least. We had to learn to communicate again. The rhythm of our relationship had changed, and so had we. We couldn't simply pick up where we left off, we had to build something new. Something stronger. We started with the small things: coffee in the morning, simple text messages throughout the day, small gestures of affection that had once felt so natural but had been lost in the chaos of life. It wasn't much, but it was a start. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was actually present, fully present, without distraction or doubt. We talked more openly than we ever had before. About our fears, our dreams, our hopes for the future. We didn't just talk about what went wrong in the past, we focused on what could go right in the future. There was no rush, no pressure. Just two people who had rediscovered each other, one conversation at a time. And then, one evening, as we sat on the couch together, Sarah looked at me with a quiet smile. "I never thought we'd be here again," she said softly, her eyes reflecting the vulnerability she had kept hidden for so long. "But I'm so glad we are." In that moment, I realized something that I hadn't fully understood before. Love isn't about perfect timing or grand gestures. It's about being willing to keep showing up, even when things aren't easy. It's about taking the time to rebuild trust and being patient with each other as you navigate the ups and downs of life. Most importantly, it's about remembering that love is something that grows, and sometimes it needs room to grow. I reached for her hand, and we sat in comfortable silence, knowing that this was just the beginning. We weren't the same people we had been before. We were better, stronger, and more aware of the preciousness of the love we shared. We weren't rushing anymore. We were taking it one step at a time, together. As the months passed, Sarah and I began to settle into a rhythm together. It was strange at first, trying to balance the life I had built with the life we were now building. But over time, it became clear to me that the love we had found wasn't just some fleeting moment. It wasn't an accident or some stroke of luck. It was a choice, and a powerful one at that. Commitment is something people often talk about, but it's not until you're in the thick of it, when things are hard, when life is unpredictable, that you truly understand its meaning. I had always thought of commitment as something simple, something that just came naturally once the right person came along. But I was learning that real commitment meant showing up even when things weren't perfect. Even when life threw obstacles in our way. I was amazed by how far we had come. Just a few months ago, Sarah and I were at a crossroads, unsure if we could even find our way back to each other. And now, we were making plans for the future, talking about buying a house together, about maybe even starting a family down the line. It wasn't just about love anymore, it was about the strength of our partnership, our willingness to face challenges as a team, and our shared vision of the life we wanted to build. But the road ahead wasn't without its bumps. There were moments of doubt, moments where life tried to pull us in different directions. There were times when we found ourselves at odds, when old habits crept in, and we had to remind each other why we had chosen this path together. There were arguments, silent treatments, and frustration, things that come with any relationship, no matter how much love is present. But through it all, we learned how to navigate the tough moments. We learned how to communicate better, how to listen, how to compromise. We learned that love is not just about the good times, it's about showing up in the difficult moments and working together to make things right. I've come to realize that the true strength of love doesn't come from the absence of conflict or challenges, but from the way we handle them. It's about how we support each other, how we grow together, and how we continue to choose one another every single day. It's about making a conscious decision to stay, even when life isn't perfect, and I was more certain than ever that this was a decision I would never regret. As Sarah and I moved forward, I could see the future ahead of us, one that was full of potential, of shared dreams, and of a love that was no longer uncertain or fragile, but solid and unshakable. Together, we were stronger than we had ever been apart, and I knew that no matter what life threw our way, we would face it together, and that, to me, was the ultimate victory, love as a constant, as a force that we both chose to nurture and protect, day by day. As I sat next to Sarah that night, the weight of everything we'd been through began to sink in. Our journey wasn't perfect. It never would be. But it was ours, and it had led us to this beautiful, imperfect place where we could look ahead with excitement rather than fear. We'd spent so much time talking about what had gone wrong, what had hurt us in the past. But now, for the first time, we were talking about the future. We were planning. We were dreaming. And those dreams weren't just mine or hers, they were ours. We weren't just two individuals who had tried to make a relationship work. We were a team, and that changed everything. The future felt brighter now. We had learned to prioritize each other, to create a partnership that wasn't defined by mistakes but by growth. Sarah and I had built something strong, something resilient, and something that felt like it could withstand anything life threw our way. I used to fear the future. I feared that I might fail again, that we might drift apart or fall into old patterns of neglect. But now, with Sarah by my side, I realized that the future wasn't something to fear. It was something to shape. We had the power to decide what our story would be, and I knew that with her, I'd never be alone in that process. We had learned that love isn't about perfection. It's about commitment. It's about creating something meaningful together, brick by brick, even if the foundation feels shaky at times. It's about staying when it's hard, choosing to grow when things feel stagnant, and constantly finding ways to nurture the bond you share. As we talked late into the night, we made promises to each other. Not just promises of love, but promises of action. We promised to continue working on our communication, to never take each other for granted, to always prioritize our relationship no matter how busy life got. We promised to support each other's dreams, to lift each other up when one of us felt down, and to never stop growing together. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace with where we were and where we were going. The future didn't seem so uncertain anymore. I knew that whatever challenges we faced, we would face them together. And together, we could create something beautiful. As we held hands and looked at the stars that night, I realized that love isn't just about surviving, it's about thriving. And with Sarah, I felt like we had everything we needed to do just that. The future, with all its uncertainties, no longer felt like a threat. It felt like an adventure, one I was more than ready to take on. It's been a few years since Sarah and I made those promises to each other, and I can honestly say that they weren't just empty words. We've had our ups and downs, just like any couple, but something inside of me knows we're stronger than we've ever been before. There was a time when I thought love was just about the feeling, that passion that sparks between two people at the start. But now I understand that love is so much more. It's the quiet moments, when you wake up in the morning and see the person you love lying next to you, sharing the same space, the same dreams. It's in the small acts of kindness, the way Sarah always knows when I need a hug without saying a word, or how I make sure she feels heard after a long day. Looking back at everything we've been through, I can't help but feel proud of us. We've built something lasting. We've faced our challenges, our fears, and we've done it together. And that's the key, the real lesson I've learned through this whole journey. Love that lasts isn't about avoiding conflict or pretending everything is perfect. It's about facing life's struggles with your partner by your side, choosing each other every day, and growing together through it all. We've become experts at communicating, at reading each other's needs even when they're unspoken. We've learned to appreciate each other in ways that go beyond romance. It's no longer about being swept away by grand gestures or perfect moments. It's about creating a life together that's full of respect, understanding, and most importantly, trust. And with that trust, we've found peace. We don't have to worry about the future anymore, because we've learned that love is something we actively build. It's not something that just happens, it's something you put time into, and it's something you protect, even when life isn't easy. I look at Sarah now, and I see a woman who's not just the love of my life but my partner in everything. We're not perfect. We don't have it all figured out. But we have each other, and that's all we need. Our journey hasn't been without its challenges, but it's been ours. It's been full of mistakes, learning, and forgiveness. But above all, it's been full of love, the kind that doesn't fade with time or circumstances. The kind that grows stronger with each passing day. As we sit together on the porch, watching the sun set on another day, I realized that this is what love is supposed to feel like. Not a fairy tale, but something real. Something built on trust, effort, and a shared commitment to making it work. And for the first time in my life, I can honestly say I'm content with where we are. Because with Sarah, I know this is just the beginning. As I sit here, reflecting on everything that's led me to this point, I can't help but feel a mix of gratitude and disbelief. I never imagined the road would be this winding, full of unexpected turns, bumps, and challenges. But looking back, I realized that every single moment, both the good and the bad, was necessary to get me to where I am today. In the early days, I was consumed by my insecurities. I constantly worried about my worth, about whether I was good enough for Sarah. I was scared of failing her, of not living up to the expectations I thought she had for me. And because of that fear, I distanced myself. I built walls, afraid to open up completely. I kept telling myself that love would come naturally, that everything would just fall into place if I tried hard enough. But the truth is, love isn't like that. Love takes work. It takes vulnerability, effort, and the willingness to face the hard truths about yourself. I had to learn that I wasn't perfect, and neither was Sarah. But together, we were capable of something beautiful. I had to let go of the idea of a perfect relationship and embrace the messy, unpredictable reality of life together. The late-night talks, the misunderstandings, the moments of silence that didn't mean anything was wrong, these were all part of the process. I learned to appreciate the small moments, the quiet love that didn't need grand gestures or words. The biggest lesson I've learned is that love is a choice. Every day, you choose your partner, you choose to invest in the relationship, and you choose to show up even when things aren't easy. It's not about waiting for everything to be perfect, it's about making the decision to make it work, no matter what. If you had asked me years ago if I thought we could overcome the challenges we faced, I would have said no. But now, I know differently. Our past struggles have shaped us into something stronger. I've learned to trust in the process, to trust in Sarah, and most importantly, to trust in myself. If there's one thing I can say for certain, it's that love isn't about perfection, it's about growth. It's about learning together, supporting each other, and continuing to evolve as individuals and as a couple. And that's exactly what we've done. So, looking back on everything, I realized that every mistake, every hard moment, was just a stepping stone to this. To the life we've built. To the love we have now. And that makes it all worth it.